A millionaire CEO invited his maid to a party. Her calm reply left him speechless. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to the main character. The mansion was quiet in the way only very expensive houses ever are. Not peaceful, just controlled. Every clock ticked in agreement with the rules of the place. Every light was dimmed to the exact brightness someone else had decided years ago. Ethan Caldwell stood alone in his study, jacket still on, tie loosened but not removed. Outside the tall windows, the city stretched for miles, glowing with invitations he never accepted and people he never truly met. At 39, he had built a company worth billions of dollars. He had influence, power, and a calendar full of obligations. Tonight, one of those obligations mattered more than the rest: the party. It was not just a celebration, it was a statement. Board members, investors, family names that carried weight, appearances that decided futures. And tonight, showing up alone was not an option. Ethan exhaled slowly and glanced at his phone. 3 missed calls from his mother. 1 message from his assistant reminding him of the unspoken rule. Do not arrive alone. Do not give them a reason to ask questions. He hated this part, the pretending, the smiling, the way people looked past his words and straight into his personal life, searching for leverage. A soft sound broke the silence. Footsteps, calm, familiar. She stood at the doorway, hands folded in front of her, posture straight but relaxed. Her name was Clara. She had worked in the house for over a year. She was not loud. She was not invisible either. She did her job well and spoke only when necessary. Ethan turned toward her, already rehearsing the words in his head. This was practical, temporary, a solution, nothing more. Clara met his eyes without hesitation. No nervous smile, no rush to speak, just attention. I need someone to accompany me to a party tonight, he said. The words sounded colder than he intended, direct, efficient, the way he handled everything else in his life. For a moment, nothing happened. Clara did not gasp. She did not step back. She did not look offended or flattered. She simply considered him, as if weighing something far more important than money or position. Ethan felt an unexpected tension settle in his chest. He was used to people reacting. Shock, gratitude, excitement, fear. Silence like this was unfamiliar. I am not asking you as an employee, he added, almost instinctively, though he had not planned to explain himself. It would only be for one event. Still, she did not answer right away. The house seemed to lean in, waiting. Finally, Clara spoke. Her voice was steady, calm, respectful. If I go, she said, it will not be because I work for you. Ethan frowned slightly. I will not pretend to be someone I am not. I will not accept money for it, and I will not allow myself to be treated as an accessory. Her words were not sharp. They were not emotional. That was what made them land so hard. Ethan stared at her, genuinely speechless. No one spoke to him like this. Not in this house. Not in his world. Clara held his gaze, unflinching. If those conditions are a problem, she continued quietly, then my answer is no. The clock on the wall ticked once, twice. For the first time that evening, Ethan Caldwell realized that the solution he thought he was offering had just turned into a question, and somehow the power had shifted without him noticing how. He nodded slowly, unsure why his pulse had quickened. Let us talk, he said. And just like that, the night took a direction he had not planned for at all. Ethan did not sit down. He remained standing near the desk, one hand resting on the back of a leather chair, as if grounding himself. Clara stayed where she was, just inside the doorway, posture unchanged. Neither of them rushed to fill the silence. It stretched, thick but not uncomfortable, like a line neither wanted to cross too quickly. You understand what tonight is, Ethan said at last. His tone was calmer now, less like a man issuing a request, more like one explaining a problem he could not solve alone. This party is not social, he continued. It is strategic. People will be watching everything. Who I arrive with, how I am treated, how I respond. Clara nodded once. She did not interrupt. If I show up alone, he said, they will assume I am vulnerable, or desperate, or hiding something. He paused, then added more quietly, "They always assume something." Clara took a small step forward, just enough to show she was listening, not enough to close the distance between them. "And you believe my presence would stop that?" she said. "Yes," Ethan answered, "because they do not know you." The honesty surprised even him. "They will not have a history to use. No rumors, no expectations." Clara considered this. She glanced briefly at the tall windows, the city lights beyond them, then back at him. "And after tonight?" she asked. "After tonight," Ethan said, "we return to exactly how things were." Her expression did not change, but something in her eyes sharpened. "Exactly how things were," she repeated. "Yes." She exhaled slowly. "I want to be clear," Clara said. "I will attend as myself. I will not lie if asked who I am. I will not play a role that requires me to diminish myself." Ethan hesitated. "They do not need details," he said carefully. "That is still a form of lying," she replied. Her voice remained calm, but firm. "If I go, it is because I choose to, not because I am hiding behind your name." He studied her for a long moment. "You are asking for trust," he said. "I am asking for respect," Clara corrected. The distinction landed. Ethan nodded once. "Very well." He moved to the desk and opened a drawer, then stopped himself. He closed it again without taking anything out. "No contracts," he said. "No money." Clara watched him closely, as if noting the decision rather than the gesture. "One more thing," she said. "Go on." "At the party," she continued, "you do not speak for me. You do not correct me. You do not use your position to end conversations on my behalf." Ethan almost smiled. Almost. "You drive a hard bargain," he said. "I am not bargaining," she replied. "I am setting boundaries." Another pause. "Agreed," he said. For the first time since the conversation began, something shifted between them. Not warmth, not comfort, but balance. "I will need time to prepare," Clara said. "If I am going, I will not arrive looking like someone who borrowed confidence for the night." "You will have whatever you need," Ethan said. She met his eyes again. "I already told you," she said softly. "I am not accepting money." He nodded. "Then you will have choice." That answer seemed to satisfy her. "I will be ready in 1 hour," Clara said. She turned to leave, then stopped. 1 hour, she repeated. "Not because you asked, because I agreed." Ethan watched her walk away, her steps steady, unhurried. When the door closed behind her, he realized something that unsettled him more than any board meeting ever had. For the first time in a long while, he was not in control of how the night would unfold. And for reasons he could not yet name, that thought did not frighten him at all. The hour passed quietly, but the house did not feel the same. Ethan stood near the staircase when Clara returned. He did not check his watch. He did not need to. He felt the shift before he saw her. She was not transformed in any dramatic way. There was no luxury gown, no excess. She wore a simple dress, clean lines, dark fabric, fitted but modest. Her hair was neatly styled, her posture unchanged. The difference was not in what she wore, but in how completely she owned it. Ethan straightened without realizing he had done so. "You look ready," he said. "So do you," Clara replied. There was no nervous laughter, no awkwardness, just an understanding that something had already begun, even before they stepped outside. The car ride into the city was quiet, not tense, not intimate, just focused. The city lights streaked past the windows as traffic slowed near the venue. The building ahead rose like a monument to power and appearances, glass and steel reflecting names that carried influence. When the car stopped, Ethan stepped out first, then turned back toward Clara. "Once we walk in," he said, "they will assume many things." "I am aware," she replied. "If at any point you want to leave," he continued, "you say the word." She looked at him steadily. "I do not intend to disappear quietly." Something in her tone made him nod. They entered together. The room was already alive with conversation, laughter polished to sound effortless. Heads turned. Not all at once, but enough. People noticed. They always did. Introductions came quickly. "Ethan," a man said, extending his hand, eyes already flicking toward Clara. "You finally decided to bring someone." Ethan did not rush to answer. "This is Clara," he said. No title, no explanation. Clara met the man's gaze and shook his hand herself. "It is nice to meet you." The man hesitated for half a second, thrown off by her confidence, then smiled. Likewise. They moved through the room. Questions followed, polite at first, then sharper. "And how did you two meet?" a woman asked, her tone sweet but searching. Clara did not look to Ethan for permission. "We met through work," she said calmly. It was true, and it was enough. The woman blinked, clearly expecting more, then nodded. How interesting. As the evening unfolded, small tests appeared everywhere. Subtle dismissals, side glances, conversations that tried to corner her into silence. Each time, Clara responded with grace, not defiance. She listened. She spoke when it mattered. She did not overshare. She did not retreat. Ethan watched it all. He noticed how people adjusted when they realized she was not easily overlooked. How some grew cautious. How others grew curious. At one point, a comment was made, careless and sharp, about people who did not belong in rooms like this. The silence afterward was brief. Clara spoke before Ethan could. Belonging, she said evenly, is not always about invitation. Sometimes it is about contribution. The conversation shifted. The comment was never repeated. Ethan felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. Not pride, something quieter, deeper. Later, as the night slowed and the room thinned, they stood near the edge of the terrace, city air cool against their skin. "You handled that well," Ethan said. "I handled myself," Clara replied. He nodded. "Yes, you did." For a moment, neither spoke. "This was supposed to be simple," he admitted. "It rarely is," she said. They looked out over the city, lights stretching for miles. Somewhere between the entrance and this moment, the arrangement had changed. Not in words, not on paper, but in the way Ethan now understood one thing with unsettling clarity. This night was no longer something he was getting through. It was something he would remember. The drive back was quieter than the drive there. Not because there was nothing left to say, but because both of them were processing what had already happened. The city lights faded behind them as the car turned into the long, private road leading back to the estate. Clara rested her hands in her lap, posture still composed, but her gaze no longer fixed on the window. Ethan sat back, jacket unbuttoned now, the tension he usually carried loosening in ways he did not fully understand. "You did not have to step in," Clara said at last. Ethan turned slightly toward her. "I know. But you were going to," she added. "Yes." She nodded, accepting the answer without comment. When they arrived, the house greeted them with the same controlled silence as before. But it felt different now. Less like a place of rules, more like a space holding unanswered questions. Ethan waited until they were inside before speaking again. "I meant what I said," he told her. "Tonight was the only obligation." Clara met his eyes. "I assumed as much. There will be no expectations beyond that," he continued. "No assumptions." She studied him carefully. "And yet," she said, "you sound like someone who's about to ask for something." He did not deny it. "Not tonight," he said. "Not yet." They stood there, the distance between them deliberate, clear. Neither crossed it. "I will return to my duties in the morning," Clara said. "As agreed." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Of course." She turned to leave, then paused. "For what it is worth," she said, "you did not treat me like a solution tonight." He looked up at her. "Thank you," she added, then continued down the hallway, footsteps fading into the quiet. Ethan remained where he was long after she disappeared from view. The next morning, the house resumed its routines. Breakfast was prepared, schedules were followed, staff moved efficiently, respectfully. On the surface, nothing had changed. But Ethan noticed everything. He noticed how Clara spoke with quiet authority when organizing tasks, how others listened, how she did not glance his way unless necessary. At breakfast, his phone buzzed, a message from his mother. She impressed everyone. Another followed quickly. "They are asking questions." Ethan set the phone down slowly. Later that day, his assistant approached him with a carefully neutral expression. "The board would like to know if they will be seeing her again," she said. Ethan did not answer immediately. Across the room, Clara was arranging flowers, focused, unaware of the conversation. "She is not an arrangement," he said finally. His assistant raised an eyebrow but said nothing. That evening, Ethan found Clara in the small sitting room near the back of the house. It was one of the few places that felt untouched by formality. "They want to see you again," he said. She did not look surprised. "I expected that," she replied. "They believe consistency matters," he continued. "Appearances." Clara set the book she had been reading aside. "And what do you believe?" she asked. Ethan considered the question more carefully than he had any business proposal in years. "I believe," he said slowly, "that I do not want to speak for you again without your consent." Her expression softened, just slightly. "What are you asking?" she said. "A continuation," he answered honestly, "on your terms." Silence followed. Not heavy, not tense, just honest. Clara stood. "If this continues," she said, "it does not become a performance. It does not become leverage." "I agree. And if at any point it stops serving both of us," she added, "it ends." "Yes." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Then we are clear," she said. As she walked past him, Ethan felt the weight of the choice he had just made settle in. This was no longer about appearances. It was about what happened when a boundary was respected. And that, he was beginning to understand, changed everything. The days that followed settled into a strange new rhythm. Nothing was announced, nothing was declared, and yet, everything was different. Clara did not move into a new role, nor did she step out of her old one. In the mornings, she still organized the house with quiet efficiency. In the afternoons, she read in the small sitting room or walked the garden paths that curved behind the estate. Ethan noticed that she did not dress to impress. She dressed to be herself. And somehow, that made more of an impression than anything money could buy. They began appearing together at events, slowly, deliberately. Not every night, not every invitation, only the ones that mattered. At the first business dinner after the party, eyes followed them the moment they entered. The room was smaller than the gala, but sharper. Executives, partners, people who measured value in margins and influence. Ethan introduced Clara the same way he always did. "This is Clara." No explanation, no defense. At the table, the conversation drifted toward familiar territory: markets, strategy, control. Someone made an offhand remark about keeping certain people in their place. Clara paused, fork resting lightly against her plate. "Order," she said calmly, "is not the same as hierarchy." The table fell quiet. Ethan did not interrupt. He did not redirect. He let the silence sit where it belonged. Later that evening, in the car, he exhaled slowly. "You do not hesitate," he said. "I think before I speak," Clara replied. "That is not the same thing." He nodded, absorbing the lesson. At another event, a family gathering this time, his aunt studied Clara with open curiosity. "And what do you do?" she asked. Clara smiled politely. "Many things." The answer was not evasive. It was complete. Ethan watched his family recalibrate in real time. Between events, something else grew. Not romance, not yet. Understanding. They spoke more. Not about feelings, but about values, boundaries, what it meant to be seen without being claimed. One evening, standing near the fireplace after returning late, Ethan broke the silence. "You do not owe me this," he said. "I know," Clara replied. "Then why continue?" he asked. She met his eyes. "Because it remains honest." That answer stayed with him longer than any compliment ever had. The real test came sooner than expected. At a charity board meeting hosted at the estate, a guest arrived uninvited. Someone from Ethan's past. A woman who knew how to smile while cutting deep. She looked at Clara, then back at Ethan. "So this is the arrangement," she said lightly. The room stilled. Ethan opened his mouth, ready to intervene. Clara spoke first. "There is no arrangement," she said evenly. "There is presence and choice." The woman laughed softly. "How noble." Ethan stepped forward then, his voice calm but firm. "She is here because I asked her to be," he said, "and because she agreed." No apology, no explanation. The woman said nothing more. That night, after the guests had gone and the house settled again into quiet, Ethan found Clara on the terrace. "You did not need to handle that alone," he said. "I did not," she replied. "You stood with me." He nodded. "I wanted to." She studied him, searching for something beneath the words. "This is changing," she said. "Yes," he admitted, "it is." She turned back toward the city lights. "Then remember," she said softly, "if it ever stops being mutual, it stops." He did not hesitate. "It will not," he said. And for the first time since this began, the silence between them felt less like a boundary and more like a promise waiting to be spoken. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning. Ethan read it twice before setting his phone down. The annual Foundation Gala. Press confirmed. major donors attending, board members seated at the front, and one unspoken expectation written between every line. Appearances would be measured. He found Clara in the garden later that afternoon, kneeling near the low stone wall, trimming back ivy that had grown wild along the edge. "There is another event," he said. She did not look up right away. "I assumed there would be." "This one is different," Ethan continued. "It is public, very public." Clara stood, brushing soil from her hands. "Meaning?" "Meaning," he said carefully, "there will be questions we cannot avoid." She met his gaze, already understanding. "They will want labels," she said. "Yes. And you?" Ethan hesitated. "I want honesty," he said, "even if it complicates things." Clara studied him for a long moment. "Then we need to talk," she said. That evening, they sat across from each other in the small sitting room. No staff nearby, no interruptions, just two people choosing to be clear before the world forced them to pretend. "I will not be introduced as something I am not," Clara said first. "Not your assistant, not your arrangement, not your story." "I would not allow that," Ethan replied. "And I will not lie if asked what I mean to you," she continued. The words landed softly, but with weight. Ethan leaned back, exhaling slowly. "I do not know how to answer that yet," he admitted. "That is acceptable," Clara said. "As long as it is the truth." He nodded. At the gala, the air was sharp with cameras and expectation. The venue glowed with wealth that wanted to be admired. When Ethan arrived with Clara at his side, the reaction was immediate. Flashes, whispers, raised brows. They walked in together, unhurried. Inside, a reporter approached almost instantly. "Mr. Caldwell," she said brightly, "may we ask who you are attending with this evening?" Ethan glanced at Clara, not for permission, but for alignment. "This is Clara," he said. The reporter smiled. "And Clara is?" Clara stepped forward slightly, her voice calm and clear. "I am someone who chose to be here," she said. The answer made its way through the room faster than the cameras. Later, near the main hall, a board member cornered Ethan. "You understand how this looks," he said quietly. "Yes," Ethan replied. "And you are comfortable with that?" Ethan did not answer right away. Across the room, he saw Clara engaged in conversation, composed, present, entirely herself. "Yes," he said finally, "I am." The moment that mattered most came near the end of the evening. Ethan's mother approached, her expression unreadable. "You are creating speculation," she said. Ethan did not lower his voice. "I am creating boundaries," he replied. She looked at Clara, then back at him. "And if this becomes inconvenient?" Ethan's answer was immediate. "Then I will adjust my world," he said, not her position in it. The words carried farther than he intended. Clara heard them. After the gala, they stood outside under the night sky, the noise behind them fading. "You did not have to say that," Clara said quietly. "I did," Ethan replied, "because it was true." She searched his face. "This is no longer an arrangement," she said. "I know." "And if it costs you?" she asked. Ethan met her gaze without hesitation. "Then it costs me," he said. The silence that followed was not cautious. It was steady. For the first time, there was no contract holding them in place, no terms to review, just a choice, made openly, with consequences fully understood. And both of them stepped forward anyway. The fallout did not arrive loudly. It came in emails, in phone calls that ended too quickly, in meetings where voices stayed polite while intentions sharpened. By the end of the week, Ethan felt it pressing in from every side. The board requested a private session, no agenda attached. He arrived alone. The room was all glass and steel, designed to make transparency feel like control. Faces turned toward him, familiar and distant at the same time. "This situation," one of them began, "has become a distraction." Ethan leaned back slightly. "Define situation." "The woman," another said. "The lack of clarity." There it was. "She is not a liability," Ethan replied evenly. "That is not for you alone to decide," a third voice said. "Public perception affects valuation." Ethan folded his hands. "Then perhaps the valuation needs a stronger spine." Silence followed. Later that day, his mother called again. This time, her tone was sharper. "You are inviting unnecessary scrutiny," she said. "This has gone far enough." Ethan closed his eyes briefly. "I disagree." "She does not belong in your world," his mother insisted. Ethan opened his eyes. She belongs where she chooses to be. The call ended without resolution. By evening, the pressure reached Clara. A woman she did not recognize approached her near the staff entrance, voice low, smile practiced. "You should be careful," the woman said. "People like you often misunderstand temporary interest." Clara did not respond. "Do you know what happens when this ends?" the woman continued. "You will be blamed." Clara met her gaze. "It will only end if I choose to leave." The woman laughed softly. "That is what everyone thinks." That night, Clara did not seek Ethan out. She returned to her room and sat in silence, weighing something she had known was coming. The next morning, she found him in the study. "We need to talk," she said. Ethan looked up immediately. "I know." "They are coming for you through me," Clara continued. "That was inevitable." "They are mistaken if they think that will work," Ethan said. "That is not the point," she replied. "You are being asked to choose." Ethan stood. "I already have." "Not fully," Clara said gently. "Not yet." He frowned. "What are you saying?" She took a breath. "I am saying that if this continues, it will cost you more than you expect." "And if it does?" he asked. Clara held his gaze. "Then it must be because you are willing, not because you are reacting." The words settled heavily between them. "You want space," Ethan said quietly. "I want clarity," Clara answered. "For both of us." The tension in the room was not anger, it was restraint. "I will not disappear," she added, "but I will not be the reason you are cornered." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You are not a reason, you are a choice." "And choices," Clara said, "require timing." For the first time since this began, she stepped back instead of forward. "I need time," she said, "away from the noise." Ethan did not try to stop her. "If you go," he said, "it will not change how I feel." She nodded. "I believe that." She turned to leave, then paused. "Do not fight them yet," she said. "Let them reveal themselves." The door closed softly behind her. The house felt larger afterward, colder. That evening, Ethan received the message he had expected, an ultimatum, thinly veiled as concern. Resolve this, or prepare for consequences. He stared at the city lights long into the night, understanding now what the arrangement had truly become. It was no longer about appearances. It was about whether he would protect what mattered, even if it meant standing alone first. And somewhere beyond the walls of the estate, Clara was making her own choice as well. The board meeting was scheduled for noon, but Ethan arrived early. He stood alone in the empty conference room, jacket off, sleeves rolled neatly to his forearms. The city below looked smaller from this height, as if distance could reduce consequence. He knew better. On the table lay a single folder. Inside were projections, risks, recommendations. A future neatly arranged by people who did not have to live inside it. When the board members entered, conversation stopped. They did not waste time. "This has gone far enough," one of them said. "The association is becoming a narrative." Another slid a document across the table. "We need assurance." Ethan did not open it. "You are asking me to remove her," he said calmly. "We are asking you to stabilize the company," someone corrected. Ethan folded his hands. "At the cost of integrity?" A pause. "Integrity does not pay dividends," the chairman replied. Ethan smiled faintly. "It does, eventually." They spoke in measured tones for nearly an hour. Consequences were outlined. Support was implied and withdrawn in the same breath. By the end, the message was clear. End this quietly, or face resistance publicly. Ethan stood. "I will not," he said. Silence spread through the room. "You are choosing conflict," the chairman said. "I am choosing alignment," Ethan replied. He left without waiting for dismissal. Across town, Clara sat in a quiet public library, sunlight falling through tall windows. She had chosen the place deliberately, neutral ground. No power, no echoes of expectation. Her phone buzzed once, then again, messages she did not read. When she finally stood to leave, she did not feel lighter. She felt resolved. That evening, Ethan arrived at the estate to find the gates open and the driveway empty. For the first time, the house did not feel like shelter. It felt like a stage waiting for a decision. He found Clara in the garden, standing where the ivy had been trimmed days earlier. "I expected you to come," she said without turning. "I told them no," Ethan replied. She faced him then. "You should not have done that for me." "I did not," he said. "I did it for myself." They stood in silence, the distance between them no longer cautious but deliberate. "They will escalate," Clara said. "I know. And it will cost you." "Yes." She searched his face. "Then why now?" Ethan took a breath. "Because silence would have been easier, and wrong." Clara nodded slowly. "There is something you need to understand," she said. "If we continue, it is not as a defense. It is not as a rebellion." "I understand. It is as a choice made in daylight," she continued, in front of them. He did not hesitate. "That is exactly what I intend." The next evening, the foundation hosted a press briefing. It was not scheduled. That alone drew attention. Cameras lined the room. Questions buzzed before anyone spoke. Ethan stepped forward, calm, composed. "I am aware there has been speculation," he said. "Let me be clear." Clara stood beside him, not a step behind. "There is no arrangement," Ethan continued. "There is no transaction. Clara is here because she chooses to be, and I stand with her by choice as well." A reporter raised a hand. "Are you prepared for the consequences of this decision?" Ethan glanced at Clara, then back to the room. "Yes," he said. The silence that followed was not hostile. It was stunned. Later, when the cameras were gone and the room emptied, Clara turned to him. "You did not need to make a statement," she said. "I needed to make a commitment," Ethan replied. She considered him for a long moment. "Then this is no longer about pressure," she said. "It is about what comes after." Ethan nodded. "Whatever that is, we face it honestly." For the first time since the beginning, there was no contract implied. No boundary needing defense. Only two people who had chosen, publicly and without retreat. And that choice, once spoken aloud, could not be taken back. The weeks that followed were quieter than anyone expected. There were no dramatic resignations, no public scandals. The company stock dipped, then stabilized. The board adjusted, reluctantly at first, then with practiced acceptance. Power, Ethan learned, did not vanish when challenged. It recalibrated. Life inside the estate changed as well. Not abruptly, not ceremonially, but deliberately. Clara did not remain in the shadows, nor did she step into a role she had not chosen. She continued her work for a time, then began to step away from it, piece by piece, as conversations replaced assumptions. One afternoon, she and Ethan sat in the garden as the light shifted toward evening. "I have been offered another position," Clara said, "outside this house." Ethan looked at her. "Do you want it?" "Yes," she replied, "because it is mine." He nodded, relief and pride mixing quietly. "Then you should take it." She smiled, just slightly. "I will." They did not rush what followed. There were no declarations made for an audience, no gestures designed to prove anything. What grew between them was steady. They spoke openly, about fears, about mistakes, about what it meant to choose someone without owning them. One evening, after dinner, Ethan stood near the fireplace, hands loosely clasped. "There is something I need to ask you," he said. Clara looked up, attentive but calm. "Ask?" "I am not offering you a role," he continued, "and I am not asking you to stand beside me for appearances." She waited. "I am asking," he said carefully, "if you want to build something real with me, slowly, without contracts, without expectations written by anyone else." The silence that followed was warm, not heavy. "Yes," Clara said. Not because it was dramatic, not because it was safe, because it was honest. Months later, at a small gathering far from cameras and boardrooms, Ethan stood before a handful of people who mattered. Friends, family who had learned to listen, colleagues who had learned restraint. Clara stood beside him, not introduced, not explained. When he reached for her hand, it was not to claim, it was to connect. "I once believed control was leadership," Ethan said quietly. "I was wrong." He looked at Clara. "Leadership is choosing with integrity, even when it costs you comfort." Clara met his gaze, eyes steady. "And love," she added softly, "is choosing without fear." There was no spectacle, no excess, just two people who had walked through an arrangement and come out with something far more difficult and far more valuable: commitment. Later that night, as they stood alone beneath the open sky, Ethan spoke again. "Do you regret how this began?" he asked. Clara smiled. "No," she said, "because it ended with choice." He nodded, understanding fully now. What had started as a request had become a partnership. What had been temporary had become intentional. And what had been fake had turned real. not through force or fortune, but through respect. In the end, it was not the party that changed everything. It was the answer. Calm, clear, unafraid, and powerful enough to reshape a life built on anything but that.